Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste, dear friends. A very warm welcome from Team Param Vedanta to session 4 of our exploration into the profound ancient wisdom of Panchadashi, which focuses on its first chapter, Tattva Viveka. In our last session, we studied the shlokas 9 to 12, where we learnt about the natural and unconditional nature of self-love and how manifestation of self-love depends on the inner bliss of the self, and why the partial knowledge is hindrance to the realization of this inner bliss. Today, we further advance into shlokas 13 to 16 of Tattva Viveka, where we will study how Vidyaranya defines what exactly is an obstacle or Pratibandha in Vedantic study, and how it varies or differs with the situation, and introducing Prakruti to understand ignorance or beginningless ignorance or Avidya, followed by two forms of Prakruti and relation with Ishwara. Guiding us through these profound concepts are our speakers, Dr. Komal Prasad sir, Srimati Padma, Srimati Mamta, and Dr. Sundar sir, each sharing their insights on their verses. We will also have a reflective quiz conducted by Srimati Mamta towards the end of the session to help us deepen and strengthen our understanding. Let us first begin by revisiting the essence of our previous session presented by Srimati Chaitanya ma'am, followed by Dr. Komal Prasad sir, who will lead us into today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. From the 8th verse onwards, Vidyaranya proceeds to the third description of Atma, Ananda Swarupa, and which he continues in the next verse, which we did last week. Next slide. Here he says, Tat Prema Anyatra, the love that is directed towards others, Atma Artham, is for the sake of one's own needs and comfort only. It is conditional. Whereas Atmana Prema, self-love, is Naiva Anya Artham, not based on other people and things. It is unconditional. Atha Tat Param, therefore, self-love is the highest love. And so it is the greatest source of Ananda. Next slide. His reasoning is whatever is an object of love is a source of happiness, and whatever is an object of dislike is a source of sorrow. One always struggles to get out of sorrow since it is not his nature. Nobody tries to remove happiness since it is one's true nature. Due to these two reasons, he says Atma is Ananda Swarupa. Next slide. So when you love anything, a person, object, or a situation, it is not for the thing itself, but because it is temporarily reflects the joy of the self. But that happiness is not in the object. It is your own true nature, briefly recognized when the mind is calm. As said in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the self is dearer than a son, dearer than wealth, and dearer than all else. Next slide. So all external joys fade due to time, change, or dissatisfaction, but our true nature is limitless, Ananta, because it is not dependent on objects. Therefore, our nature is Paramananda. Recognizing this ends the endless search for happiness in this world. Therefore, in the 10th verse, as we'll see in the next slide, Vidyaranya concludes that the nature of Atma is Satchidananda, and that of Brahman is also of the same nature. Here he says, Ittam, in this manner, Yuktya, by analysis from verses 3 to 9, through Atma Anatma Viveka, Anvaya Vatireka Viveka, Atma is Satchit Parananda. The Upanishads also talk about Jagat Karanam Brahma as Satchidananda. Therefore, we arrive at the conclusion that Tayocha Ekyam, Jivatma and Paramatma are essentially one. Such statements revealing Aikyam are called Mahavakyam, which is the central teaching of the Vedas. Shruti Anteshu Upadishyate. The aim of the Upanishads is to educate Aikyam. Next slide. Therefore, you are not the body-mind, but eternal Satchidananda. The God you seek is your own true nature. You are not a part. It is like the wave struggling to find the ocean, not realizing it has never been apart from it. So, liberation or moksha is realizing this identity, not gaining something new, but shedding ignorance. Next slide. Now we know that Brahman and I are one and the same, Satchidananda. But why do we suffer and still have samsara? Vidyaranya addresses this in the next verse and in the following verses on samsara karanam. In verse 11, he says, Abhane na param prema. If Atma is totally unknown, nobody will have self-love. But if the self is totally known, bhane, I will never emotionally depend on any external objects. Vishaya spruha na bhavati. But we have self-love and also attachment towards external world. Why is that? Asau atmana paramanandataha. This Ananda Swarupam of Atma, Bhane api abhate, is evident but not totally. Therefore, our real problem is partial knowledge about ourselves. Next slide. So how did Vidyaranya now conclude that the nature of Atma is Satchidananda? We'll just go through it once more. The Atma is not an object that comes and goes. It is ever-present reality behind all experiences. For example, in deep sleep, you still exist, proving your nature is Sat. Secondly, Atma is not inert. It is a light of awareness that illuminates thoughts, senses, and perceptions. You know I am happy or sad because of Chit or consciousness. And finally, Atma is the nature of Ananda. It is not dependent on external joys. It is happiness itself. The peace you feel in deep sleep is a glimpse of this Ananda. Therefore, our nature is as the same as Brahman, Satchid Ananda. It's like space inside the pot and outside the pot are one and the same. As said in the Mandukya Upanishad, I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman. Therefore, ignorance of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam is the cause of this samsara. Self-love indicates that I have some knowledge that I am Ananda Swarupa. This partial knowledge is cause of our problem. Total knowledge and total ignorance does not cause any problems. Take the example of rope snake. With total knowledge of the rope, there is no problem. With total ignorance of the rope, there is no problem. With partial knowledge of the rope partial knowledge of the rope causes all the problems. And so why do we have this partial knowledge? In the 12th verse, he explains with an examples of a father struggling to listen to his son's Vedic chanting. Adhyetru Varga Madhyastha, amidst the Vedic students chanting, Putra Adhyayana Shabdavat. The son's chanting is distinctly known. Why? The child's chanting is known yet unknown. There is a problem of partial knowledge and partial ignorance. Tadvat, similarly, Atma Swarupam Api, the nature of Atma also, Bhane Api Abhanam Bhavati, is partially known and partially unknown. What is the cause of this partial knowledge? Pratibandha yujyate. It is due to encountering an obstruction. In the case of the rope snake, it is the obstruction is partial light or partial darkness. In the case of the boys chanting, obstruction is because of partial audibility. So Atmananda is not known clearly, so I go for Ananda externally. But at the same time, I know it is self-Ananda, so I love myself also. Any partial knowledge is because of some obstacle. Obstacles in the form of ignorance alone obstructs total knowledge. So know the self and the world loses its grip. Hari Om. Thank you.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadhashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. are seeing Panchadashi, and in the first 10 verses, Vidyaranya introduced the subject matter of whole of Vedanta Shastra, which is nothing but Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. So that first part is Jivatma Swarupa, which is a Tvam Padartha. And Vidyaranya points out that this part, Jivatma Swarupa, can be arrived at using logical reasoning, like Avastatraya Viveka. The second part and the third part, that's the Paramatma Swarupa, and the Aikyam part, that's the Tat Padartha and Aikyam, that Asi Padartha, are to be revealed by Shastra. So this is the gist of the first 10 verse we saw. Going further, in the next slide, we see Drishtanta, which is about the example of a father trying to make out his son chanting in a large classroom of Vedanta students. So you can go to the next slide. And the Vidyaranya brings us our notice to the definition of obstacle or pratibandha. If everything around us, Jivatma, Paramatma, Jagat, everything is made out of Brahman, and we are experiencing everything around. So, what is it which obstructs us to identify, to notice that Brahman, that original consciousness around us? For this, the Drishtanta Vidyaranya gives is about the chorus of young students in a Vedic classroom who are chanting in chorus. And when the father is trying to isolate his son's voice, it is obstructed, it is hindered by what? By the simultaneous chanting of the words by the whole class. How does this become the obstruction? The chorus drowns the lone voice of the son, who is the part of the chorus. So there are two parts to this pratibandha, which are explained like if the father is standing on the back side of the classroom, he would not see son's face and he would say, Na asti, my son does not exist in this classroom. And even if he comes to the front and somebody points to his son, even then, even if he sees his lip moving, the father says, Na bhati, I can't perceive, I can't hear him because his sound is drowned in the chorus. So the obstacle, pratibandha, is something that hides clear knowledge and brings about wrong knowledge. It hides the true nature of a thing and makes it appear as something else. So now, generally, our ego makes us feel like when we say it's our ignorance, we are not experiencing, we are not make sure we are this obstruction is inherent in the system. It's not like a deficiency within you and you can make up, but it's a real thing which is obstructing the perception. So that is the gist which will be coming up about what this obstruction is. A very important thing we need to. It doesn't have an English correlate, even though we can say hindrance or an obstruction. Okay, we'll come to that in the next verse. So in today's session, we are going to see 4 verses. Okay, so we saw the introduction to partial knowledge in Shloka 12. In verse 13, we are going to see the definition of obstacle, pratibandha. And the cause of the obstacle will be discussed in 14th verse, Prakriti and ignorance. We'll jump to the Prakriti, Avidya, and Maya in the next verses as a prelude to getting into the subject matter of creation. And then starts creation of elements in the later shlokas, which we'll see in the next class. Coming to the next slide, we see verse number 13. It is definition of pratibandha. Pratibandhosti bhati iti vyavahararha vastuni tanirasya viruddhasya tasya utpadanam uchyate. So definition of Pratibandha. So as I said, these English words of obstacle, impediment, obstruction or hindrance are not enough. It is, it shines, it reveals. So what is that which makes us feel even though it's there, it's not there? What is that which drowns the sun's voice? Here the example of sun's voice to be taken as the Brahman which is inherent in our every experience, every object we experience, but why it gets drowned down by the chorus of the Maya around it. Okay. So if something is not apprehended, it is due to an obstruction. Nirasya means something that hinders the experience from being perceived. Here it is the chorus. Viruddhasya means it's not just obstructing and blocking, it is creating a Vikshepa Shakti, a counter experience, which facilitates a contrary experience, as if no, the whole sound is coming only from the other students. It's not, my son does not exist, and he doesn't appear to be participating in the chorus. Okay. So that our experience of bliss is obstructed by this na asti, na bhati perception, non-perception of Brahman. So to put it in simple terms, we can say what is obstructed knowledge and what is unobstructed knowledge. It's a very important slide and very important definition we can see here. Obstructed knowledge is the experience and how we explain, or if somebody asks like what's your experience, if I say like I see the object because it is there, that's an obstructed knowledge. But for a gnani, for a person who has an unobstructed knowledge, it will be like the object is there because I see it. Very subtle difference between these two sentences. We can take a moment to introspect, to go through this once again. Obstructed knowledge is I see the object because it's there, meaning we give a realistic presence or an existence to the object outside of us, and I am seeing it. So a stone or an apple or this flower, it's there and I see it when my eyes are open. When my eyes are closed, I'm unable to see it. But whether the flower is there or not there, it's there, but I am unable to see it because my lids are closed. My lids are closed. That's obstructed knowledge. That's the Vyavaharika. That's how our day-to-day life goes. But once the Vedanta Shastra gets installed as a software in our system, then this unobstructed knowledge opens up, which claims that the object is there because I see it. I create that object outside of me, my body. In fact, it's not, it's an extension of my own being, which is projecting that object and also experiencing it, enjoying it. And I see it because the object is existent because I see it. So you are the creator of that object. So we can see our day-to-day examples, like in the next slide, you see the flower. The lotus is blooming. We are seeing it. And if I see it, if you see it, if 10 people see it, it's the same lotus flower blooming with its different hues. But how does a person who has a difficulty or deficient vision sees this? In the next slide, we see he also sees, but because of his deficient vision, he perceives, he feels like it's some problem with myself. There is a lotus there, but I am unable to perceive, which I was able to perceive 20 years ago. Now, because of cataract or something, I am unable to perceive in the same sharpness. Whereas if we see the other creatures, like a butterfly, in the next slide we see, which would be able to see the ultraviolet spectrum around it. So this is how it does not have the cones what we have, and these colors are non-existent. But for a butterfly, this is how the same flower looks. So is this the flower which we were seeing, or which the flower which the butterfly is seeing? Which one is the real one which is existing there? The next slide, we can dim it further for a person who has such a worsened vision or who has uh, lost his faculty of vision. This is how he would perceive. every point in this picture in front of us has a potential to be projected in different hues. For a Gnani, he not just for the Vyavahara purposes, he would be seeing these different hues of the flower. But as in the next slide, in the background, he will always be aware of that light, of that substratum in which this flower is projected. The next slide again we'll see the flower. So this is for this we are just taking an example of our sight or vision as one aspect. It can be extrapolated to hearing, that like how we heard about the chorus and the sun's voice. Okay. Again, taking the example of vision, in the next slide we see the Asti Bhati of a Orion constellation as we see, each of us see in the night sky is in the left side. But on the right side, the same image, same part of the sky is shown with infrared light, which shows in a very different thing. So in case, look, that happens because as we see in the next slide, our visible spectrum is very, very narrow. When we see the whole extent from left to right is the possible electromagnetic spectrum, whereas that narrow, which is bloomed and zoomed out, is the narrow spectrum, which is the visible light. Beyond this, we are unable to see anything. Suppose we get endowed with the Divya Drishti of able to see everything on the either side of the spectrum. How would the world around us look? Like that empty blank slide which I had shown earlier, because each one of this point would be projecting some or the other rays, and we would see a perfect positive blankness, you can say. It's there, everything is there, but you give equal importance to every point, and you perceive as if there is nothing, or you perceive that substratum. The next slide we see the same thing, why this delusion happens, because all these waves have different capacity to reach us. The radio waves, we won't see that around us. The Wi-Fi waves, which we are just utilizing to communicate and talking and explaining this, we are unable to see. Suppose we by some mechanism we are able to see that, then we will see, we will be able to see that Brahman around us. So what we have to see is this obstruction in a way is necessary for our Astibhati Vyavahara. In a way, this Astibhati Vyavahara, that our day-to-day activity happens only because of a sort of obstruction or the kind of this Avarana and Vikshepa Shakti. Without that, we won't be seeing these different hues or different voices. We'll be able to know that only because of presence of Prakriti. That we'll come to in the next second half of today's session. So to recapitulate, this is an important thing as a take home for today. The Pratibandha means obstructed knowledge. And what it says is, I see the object because it's there. So that's the lower order of understanding. The higher order of understanding is unobstructed knowledge, which would claim that the object is there because I see it. And in the second half, we are going to see more about this Prakriti, which will make the world around us appear. And Prakriti, we see, is made up of three gunas: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva is the knowing faculty. Rajas is the doing or the activity faculty. Tamas is the inertia, the mass of the Dravya Shakti. We saw this in Gita also. In 14th chapter, we saw Prakriti is made up of Sattvam, Rajas, Tama iti guna Prakriti sambhavaha. So this Prakriti is made up of these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, born out of Prakriti. They fasten the changeless self in the body, O Arjuna. This is what Krishna says there. We will have to again spend a while about what are these gunas. In the next slide, we see gunas are not just attributes of Prakriti, but its first products, and hence substances themselves. Guna is written to signify that these substances are eternally dependent on the original consciousness, the Kshetrajna. And here, as a side note, we should again recapitulate the difference, subtle difference between Vedanta and Sankhya. In Sankhya, Prakruti is given a reality. Whereas in Vedanta, Prakriti is Mithya. It's always dependent on Ishwara's Maya Shakti. Okay. In Sankhya, Purusha and Prakriti have equal level of reality. Both are real. Whereas in Vedanta, we say this Prakriti is Maya, which is an aberration, which is a disturbance in Brahman. It is eternally dependent on Brahman. It is present from time immemorial, but its presence, its existence depends on Brahman. So now we have two parts, original consciousness, in the next slide we see, and the reflected consciousness. And what does the consciousness reflect upon? The reflecting media. That is of three types. Sattva pradhana Prakriti. So the Prakriti and Purusha. The left side, the dark original consciousness is Purusha. The whole thing on the right is Prakriti. The Prakriti is of three types. Sattva pradhana, Rajas pradhana, and Tamas pradhana. Sattva pradhana Prakriti, which otherwise called Shuddha Sattva Prakriti, which is otherwise called Maya. And when original consciousness reflects on this Shuddha Sattva Prakriti, we call it the Ishwara, the omniscient, omnipotent Ishwara. Because there is no element, no Malina aspect of Rajas. It's only the knowing faculty which is there. So there is no Avidya. It's a pure Maya Pratibimba Chaitanya. And other thing we have to remember is this Maya Pratibimba, that reflecting substance, reflecting medium, as well as the reflected consciousness are inseparable. Okay? This Ishvara as well as this Pratibimba Maya are inseparable. Okay? And this Rajas Pradhana Prakriti, the next is Malina Shudda Sattva Prakriti, which is otherwise called Avidya, which is the Sattva which has a tinge, which is mixed up with the Rajas component. And the consciousness, when it reflects on this part, Rajas Pradhana Prakriti, which is Avidya Pratibimba Chaitanya, is nothing but Jiva, which has its own presence, which has its own ego, which has its own feeling that I can move my hands, I can move. That I is confined to that body, that Jiva. Whereas if we see the consciousness as a whole, Ishvara knows, because he does not have that Malina Shudda Sattva Prakriti, that he can't actually move, because what is there to move when we see the perspective of original consciousness? With that ego, that I-ness, that Malina part is the avidya, the ignorance, which is brought about by the Rajas component, which get mixed up. And once the original conscious shines on it, that's what we call as jiva, multiple jivas. Tamas Pradhana Prakriti is simply called Prakriti. And the Prakriti Pratibimba Chaitanya will become the Jada Jagat around us. So Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, all these three components will be covered by this kind of explanation, which we are going to see in the next slides. We'll be seeing Dr. Padma presenting the next verse, that is the 14th verse. Over to Dr. Padma.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 14. Tasya hetu samanabhiharaha putra dhvani shrutau iha anadhi vidyaiva vyamohaika nibandhanam. Translation. The cause of the obstruction to the voice of the sun is the concealment in simultaneous chanting by all the students. And here in the present topic, that although the Atma is abundantly present, is concealed by the intense delusion alone. From our gurus, from the scriptures, Vedanta, we know that we are Brahman. That is Sat. infinite existence, Chit, infinite consciousness, Ananda, infinite bliss. But why is it that we do not realize it or experience it? This centuries ago, Swamy Vidyaranya in Panchadashi explains to us with day-to-day life examples, with reasoning, logic, very relevant examples even to the present times. Coming to the verse, Putra Dvani Shrutav, the child in Vedantic school is taking part in Vedantic chanting. The father has come with a desire to hear his son. The father is unable to distinguish the lone voice of his son's chanting. Samanabhi haraha, in the simultaneous group chanting, the chorus being the reason. If he cannot see the child in the group, he will say na asti. He is not there. If he cannot hear his son's voice, he will say na bhati, cannot hear. Samana iha. Similarly, we are unable to know or experience Brahman in us, that is Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. What is Pratibandha? What is Anadi Vidya, Avidya? Advaita Vedanta says, we are one with God. If one, why do we experience the many? Why do we have this life? Why do we not know or experience that we are one with Brahman, the nature of Satchit Ananda? What is the obstacle? The cause, it says, is Iha Anadi Avidya. Iha here, Anadi, beginningless, Avidya, ignorance, which is the obstacle, Pratibandha. Why do we say ignorance is beginningless? For example, did we know a language when we were born? No. Or before we were born? No. So ignorance is anything, ignorance of anything is beginningless, an obstacle. Swami Paramatmananda ji says, ignorance is the mother of all misconceptions or confusion. He says, Pralaya, the solar system, the planets will all collapse. But ignorance does not have a natural end. It has no start, but finish, yes. It has no beginning, but it can end or be rid of by getting knowledge. What is Pratibandha? Vyamohaika na bandhanam. Vyamoha, delusion alone is obstacle. Like the father cannot perceive or distinguish the lone voice of his son due to the children's chorus. Similarly, our true nature, Brahman, that which is absolutely there now, which exists but is not apparent to us, the obstacle being Anadi Avidya, Maya, Prakruti. Here Swami Vidyaranya introduces Maya. Again, if we are one with God, why do we have this life? Experience life, this world samsara. This is because of Maya's Avarana Shakti, which conceals or veils our true nature, Brahman, and Vikshepa Shakti, which projects or superimposes the world to conceal reality, Brahman, and creates samsara. Next slide, sir. Maya is the reason for Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya of the creation. Because of this, we have Jiva, Jagat, and Ishwara instead of oneness, Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam, which is beginningless. Nature of Maya from an enlightened person, a Jnani's point of view is there is no Maya. From philosophical point of view, Anirvachneya, Maya is inexplicable. You cannot deny or accept Maya. From Laukika, ordinary person's point of view, it is Vastvik. It is very real as one experiences the world and goes through samsara. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Chanting the verse 15. Chidanandamaya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita Tamo Rajas Sattva Guna Prakritir Dvivida Chasa. In our journey through Panchadashi, Vidyaranya explains further on beginningless ignorance or avidya of living beings, which is the root cause of human sufferings. In the next slide, To understand ignorance in human beings, Vidyaranya introduces an important concept, which is Prakriti in this verse. Prakriti is the fundamental matter, subtler than all forms of energy, forming the very basis of creation. In other words, creation is the product of Prakriti. The three gunas or qualities that are inherent of Prakriti are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Sattva representing the knowledge and clarity faculty, the capacity to know, conducive for the pursuit of knowledge, leading to permanent security, peace, and happiness, also known as Jnana Shakti. Rajas represents action and dynamism, the capacity to do with passion, leading to bondage and sorrow, also known as Kriya Shakti. And lastly, tamas, representing inertia and dullness, lacking both knowledge and action, state of laziness, confusion, leading to delusion, also known as dravya shakti. Prakriti being basis of creation, everything in creation is a mixture of three gunas. In the next slide, Prakriti is called Trigunatmica and is divided into three parts, or it takes up three forms. One form of Prakriti is Sattva Pradhana, which is knowledge oriented or knowledge dominated. And second part is Rajas Pradhana, which is action oriented or dominated. And the other part is Tamas Pradhana, inertia dominated. Vidyaranya says Dvivida, that is, introduces first two forms of Prakriti in this verse. Vidyaranya highlights that Prakriti is inert matter and is capable of reflecting or manifesting consciousness. This consciousness is referred to as Brahma in the verse. The eternal, all-pervading, limitless consciousness, or Samvit, as referred to in earlier verses, is called Brahman, which is infinite and self-luminous. When this infinite Brahman reflects in Prakriti, it enables Prakriti to possess borrowed consciousness, not intrinsic, but reflected. Hence, it is said Pratibimba Samanvita Prakriti in this verse, meaning the basic matter of creation, Prakriti, is Samanvita, endowed with the reflection of Brahman. Brahman, that is Chidanandamaya. Maya means Swarupam, Chidananda means consciousness, pure consciousness, bliss. That is Chidananda Swarupam Brahman is reflected in Prakriti. This verse sets the stage for further understanding the two forms of Prakriti that is capable of reflecting consciousness, a topic elaborated in following verses. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Swamy Vidyaranya, over 1500 odd verses, over the 15 chapters, which are divided in three panchakas, has presented a wonderful Prakarana Grantha, which we are studying now. In this next slide, we see the Pratama Panchaka or Viveka Panchaka, and we are right now in the first chapter, which is Tattva Viveka Prakarana. Pujya Swami Paramarthananda ji divides this into 5 topics as we see here. The first topic was introductory as well as in the form of Mangalacharana. The second topic is the essence of Vedanta in the form of Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikya, dealt with in a unique manner by Swamy Vidyaranya. He approaches the Tvam Padartha Lakshartha, being of the nature of Satchit Ananda, through our day-to-day experiences in the 3 avasthas. And then using Vedantic scriptures, the Tat Padartha Lakshartha also is shown as Sachitananda. And he therefore presents within the first 10 verses the aikyam between Jivatma and Paramatma. Then the first chapter moves on to the cause of samsara. If one has clear knowledge of this aikyam, of the oneness between Jivatma and Paramatma, there should not be samsara. He shows that such knowledge, when it is lacking, the ignorance is the cause of samsara. We see Swamy Vidyaranya define ignorance as an obstacle, and he has a unique definition of obstacle being conversion of asti bhati aikya vyavahara to na asti na bhati anya vyavahara. He gives the example of a child chanting in chorus, as we have seen being shown with beautiful pictures by the earlier speakers. So existence and asti is not there, and in the same manner the experience of the chanting is not there. In that place there is the perception of some other kids hearing that is happening. He adapts this same method to Atmananda, and in the process of elaborating ignorance, Swamy Vidyaranya introduces the topic of Prakruti. We see that Prakruti is Trigunatmica, Brahman is all-pervading. Prakriti has the ability to reflect consciousness, which is Brahman. So the reflection thus obtained of Brahman in each of the Prakriti is unique in its own way. So the reflection which is obtained in Sattva Pradhana Prakriti is of the nature of brightness, and that reflection, which is Ishwara, is omniscient and has zero ignorance. When we see the reflection which is obtained in the tamas pradhana prakriti, because of predominance of tamas, the sentiency, the consciousness, the ability to be aware is very poor. Because of that inertness or jadam, it is like ignorance is bliss. So as we can see in both of these reflections which are obtained in Sattva Pradhana and Tamah Pradhana Prakriti, in one there is omniscience, in the other there is complete ignorance. In both the cases, Swamiji puts it that there is no problem. But in the case of Jiva, Brahman obtains reflection in the Rajas Pradhana Prakriti. And as we shall see in the verse which is there now, this is in the form of a partial ignorance and partial knowledge. The same thing which has been explained earlier is put in a tabular form for the sake of emphasis for us to compare and contrast the reflection which is obtained in the three different media. So the medium is Maya for Prakriti 1, which is Sattva Pradhana. The reflection, the medium is Avidya for the Rajas Pradhana Prakriti. And the medium is called Prakriti itself for the Tamas Pradhana Prakriti. So the Prakriti 1 is Ishwara, 2 is Jiva, and 3 is Jagat. And so this is the triangular format that Swamiji talks about. The last row is important. Let me read it. What is the effect of Pratibimba on Prakriti? Maya Pratibimba Chaitanya, which is Ishvara, is the superior medium. It is shining, it is glorious, it has no limitations, and it is full knowledge, omniscient. Therefore, there is no problem of suffering or samsara. Whereas in the case of Prakriti 2, which is the Jiva, Avidya Pratibimba Chaitanya. This is the name of the reflection which is obtained in the Prakriti 2, which is also called as Prajna Jiva. Because the medium is inferior, the reflection is dull, not as shining as we saw in Prakriti 1. And this is partial knowledge and partial ignorance, and this lends to adhyasa. This causes the problem of samsara. In the case of Prakriti 3, the Prakriti Pratibimba Chaitanya is being more inferior, is a poor medium. So only Sat is present and Chit is not much. And this is of the nature of ignorance is bliss. So in this manner, Swamiji shows how the problem of partial knowledge and ignorance is there in Prakriti 2 or Rajas Pradhana Prakriti. Let us now move to the next slide, which deals with this verse. Sattva Shuddha Vishuddhibhyam Maya Vidye Chate Mate Maya Bhimba Vashikritya Tam Syat Sarvajna Ishvaraha. So the first, so there are two sentences here. The first sentence gives is talking about the reflection that is obtained in the first two prakritis, which we saw in the previous slide. So this verse is actually not talking about what happens with the tamas pradhana prakriti. It is basically dealing with sattva pradhana and rajas pradhana prakriti. So in the simplest form, the first sentence will be Maya Bimbaha Asti. So Maya Bimbaha means it is talking about the reflection which Brahman obtains in any of these reflecting media, because the reflecting media is endowed with an ability to reflect Brahman. So Maya Bimbaha Asti. So reflection in the medium is there. So that is the basic form of the sentence. Then you ask the question where this reflection is there. So Maya Avidyecha Temate. So now this is now defining two mediums. One is Maya, as we have seen in the previous slide. This is about Sattva Pradhana Prakruti and Avidya. So this is now talking about the Rajas Pradhana Prakriti. So Maya Bimbaha Asti. Where is it there? In Maya and Avidya. So if Maya Pratibimba is there in two medium, is there going to be a difference in the reflection in them? What is the cause for such reflection? That is shown by this word Sattva Shuddha Avishuddhibhyam. So due to or by the difference of being of the nature of Sattva Shuddha and Malina Sattva that we saw in the previous slides, one is a pure medium, which is Sattva Guna Pradhana, and the other is a inferior medium, slightly impure medium, the Malina medium, which is the Rajas Pradhana Prakriti. So this Maya Bimbaha, or the reflection which happens in the Prakriti, happens so in two medium. One is Maya and Avidya, and due to the difference in the impurities, there is going to be an outcome. And what is the outcome? Part of it is explained in the second sentence. Second sentence, the simplest form could be that Sarvajna Ishwara Syat. So Ishvara is omniscient. And how does he become omniscient? Vashikritya tam avidyam. So we saw in the first sentence that the medium that Ishvara possesses is of a pure nature. The reflection that obtains in that is shining, glorious. So therefore, he does not have any avaranam. He is therefore able to completely keep the medium under his control, and therefore he is omniscient. But with regards to the second medium, which is the Rajas Pradhana medium, since it is Malina Sattva, since it is slightly inferior and dull, Avarana operates, and we Jivas therefore are not able to keep the Prakriti under control like Ishvara does. So in conclusion, in the last slide, samsara has been established as because of ignorance, and ignorance is due to pratibimba or obstacle, which Swamiji uniquely defines as conversion of asti bhati aikya vyavahara to na asti na bhati anya vyavahara. And obstacle is Malina Sattva Pradhana Prakriti or Rajas Pradhana Prakriti or Avidya or Rajoguna of the Jiva. Thank you, sir.
Over to Dr. Mamata
Namaste.
for the quiz.
Thank you, sir. We will, good evening, everyone. We will now recap what we have learned so far in the form of quiz. The basic form of matter is introduced as Prakriti in the verse, in one of the verses we studied today. That is 15.
I have to say, is it true or false?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A basic form of matter is introduced as Prakriti in verse 15 is true.
Yes, sir. Right. Part of Prakriti that has a brighter reflection of consciousness is Maya.
That's also true.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Primary cause of obstruction to realizing Atma Ananda is partial knowledge.
It is partial knowledge and partial ignorance. That's what I think.
Yes, sir. Ignorance, correct. Yeah, I think we'll take it as ignorance in this case. Forms of Prakriti in which reflected consciousness is available is Sattva and Rajas.
Forms of Prakriti in which reflected consciousness is reflected is, these are the gunas. So I think it's false. It must be
Yes.
Jiva and
Yes, sir.
Ishvara. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Maya and Avidya, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prakriti has three inherent qualities or gunas. They are Sat, Chit, Ananda.
False. It is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
Right, sir. Right. Next slide, sir. There's a flower pot in the garden that I'm seeing. Seeing the pot represents the experience of the pot. In the context of verse 13, the statement, the flower pot exists, refers to?
When something exists, we call it as asti.
Yes, sir. My knowledge or experience of the pot refers to dash.
As bhati.
Right, sir. Right. And in the next, can we, an obstacle in perception transforms asti bhati to?
To na asti na bhati.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Next slide.
Next slide, sir.
Are you
I'll
seeing?
just read the, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Shall I read the verse or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pratibandhosti bhatiti vyavaharhara vastuni tam nirasya viruddhasya, and so on, it goes on. So basically what this verse highlights is it defines pratibandha as which is obstacle, as something that hides the truth of an existing experienceable thing. That is asti bhati vyavaharhara vastuni, and projects or as a something different that is non-existent and appears as non-existent. So a person standing in a dark room claims that the furniture does not exist. When the light is turned on, they clearly see the sofa and chair and realize they were always there. What concept from Shloka 13, which I saw, does the scenario best represent? A. Maya and Avidya. B. Transition from Nasti na bhati to Asti bhati due to removal of obstacle. C. Avarana, hiding the reality, existence of chair and creating a false experience, Vikshepa, of non-existence. D. All of the above.
The answer should be transition from na asti na bhati to asti bhati.
Correct, sir. And just an addition to that is that also explains Avarana, because the darkness acts as obstacle, Pratibandha, that caused the person to wrongly conclude the object did not exist. And then this explains the Avarana and Vikshepa as well. So I have ticked both. So next slide, please. How can we understand, related question to the previous one, how can we understand Avarana and Vikshepa Shakti of Maya with respect to Vedantic teaching? Avarana Shakti dash reality, that is, reality is I am the all-pervading self, and Vikshepa dash the illusory world onto the underlying reality.
Avarana Shakti conceals or veils the reality that I am all-pervading self, and Vikshepa Shakti projects an unreal world or illusory world onto the underlying reality.
Right, sir. That's correct. Next slide, sir. This is the verse 14, which is Tasya Hetuhu Samanabhirara Putra Dvani Shrutau Iha Nadiravidyaiva, and so on, it goes on. So Hetu means cause. The cause for the obstacle or pratibandha is interference, that is Samanabhirara, like failing to hear the voice due to some obstruction or other noises or chorus. Similarly, Ihanadi Ravidyaiva means the obstruction. Pratibandha is rooted in beginningless avidya, anadi avidya, sustained by vyamoha, that is delusion. So now what example does Vidyaranya use to explain obstruction in chanting in verse 14? A. Missing sons chanting due to other boys chanting. B. A loud temple bell. C. A festival crowd. D. None of the above.
It should be A. Mother missing the son's chanting due to the other boys chanting.
Right, sir. Correct. Then the second sub-question. Son's voice denotes dash Obstruction, the answers are in the box, choosing, we can choose from them. Obstruction is dash due to chorus that denotes dash, which has the effect of covering experience of the dash. So sun's voice denotes dash.
All right. So this is an example to say why we are not able to see our true reality because of obstruction. So the sun's voice that somebody is looking for is our true self, our reality. The obstruction is due to possibly ignorance,
Mhm.
ignorance of my true nature, due to the chorus that denotes the worldly pleasures, which has the effect of covering the experience of Satchit Ananda. Is that right?
That's right, sir. That's correct. That's very exactly correct.
Can you read it completely so that you can explain how this example tries to tell us the problem we have in understanding our true nature?
Yes, sir. This is a metaphor to the metaphor we saw in the verse 14, which is sun's voice denotes Satchitananda Atma. Obstruction is ignorance due to chorus that denotes worldly pleasure, which has the effect of covering the experience of the Satchitananda Atma.
Good.
In the next slide, sir. This is again the same verse. The question is based on the same verse, 14th verse. Moksha or liberation is not something that can be automatically attained. It is not like a river merging into the ocean. Based on what we learned today in verse 14, what would be the correct understanding? A. Moksha can come automatically after enough good karma. Moksha is automatic in the next birth for seekers. C. Liberation requires active removal of ignorance through knowledge. D. Pradaya will eventually lead to liberation.
Liberation is possible only through an active process of removing ignorance through knowledge. So the answer should be C.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that is, ignorance doesn't die a natural death, which we saw in that Anadi Avidya in this verse. Only deliberate pursuit of knowledge can lead to liberation. Next slide, sir. This is the 15th verse. Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanmita Tamo Rajas Sattva Guna Prakritir Vividha Chasa. So here, the highlight of this verse is Prakriti is consisting of three gunas. Tamo Rajas Sattva Guna is of two forms, and this Prakriti is Pratibimba Samanmita. That means it is endowed with reflection of what? Chidananda Maya Brahma. So a light bulb glows only when electricity passes through it. What Vedantic concept does this example best illustrate, as highlighted in verse 15? A. Good karma produces awareness. B. Prakriti inherently being conscious or aware. C. Inert Prakriti reflects consciousness and is sentient. D. Sattva guna creating awareness.
The answer should be C. Inert Prakriti reflects consciousness and is sentient or appears to be sentient.
Correct, sir. That's correct. Yeah. That's the answer, and you have explained it well. So we'll move on to the next questions. 16th verse. Sattva Shuddha Vishuddhibhyam Maya Vidye cha te mate, and Maya Bimbo Vashikritva Tam Syat Sarvagnya Ishwara is the verse, which means that Prakriti is of two forms, which is Maya and Avidya, which is basically Sattva Shuddha Vishuddhibhyam, that is, it is pure and impure Sattva, respectively. And Ishwara, the all-knowing Ishwara, has Maya Bimba Vashikritya. It has control over the Maya, and it is pure Sattva. A person looks in two different mirrors. One mirror is spotless and crystal clear. The other is dusty and cracked. One is a sharp reflection while the other is a dull and distorted image, respectively. What Vedantic principle does this best represent? A. The quality of the observer reflects reality. B. Maya and Avidya as two forms of Prakriti reflecting the same consciousness differently. The mind creates illusions independent of reality. D. Prakriti is not capable of any reflection.
The answer should be B. I think Maya and Avidya as two forms of Prakriti reflecting the same consciousness differently.
Right, sir. Correct. We'll move on to the next one, sir. Trigunatmica Prakriti's unique characteristic is it is made up of. The answer is in the block.
Trigunatmica Prakriti's unique characteristic is made up of, I think it's Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
Maya Pratibimba Chaitanya is known as, correct, sir. Yeah. Maya Pratibimba Chaitanya is known as.
Maya Pratibimba Chaitanya should be Ishwara.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Ishwara is omniscient and unaffected by Maya because of dash and control over dash.
Ishwara is omniscient and unaffected by Maya because of, I think it's pure Sattva.
Yes, sir.
And control over Maya.
Maya, right, right. The last question, sir. What is the relationship between Ishvara and the process of creation? That is Srishti, maintenance, and dissolution. That is Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. A. Ishvara performs these through actions or karma. Ishvara uses Maya as an instrument for these processes. Avidya governs these universal functions. That is C. And D is these functions just happen and not connected to Ishvara.
The answer likely is B. Ishvara uses Maya as an instrument for these processes.
Right, sir. Correct. Correct, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good set of questions, Mamta. Thank you.
Thank you. As we conclude this session, our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Komal sir for guiding us with clarity and profound insights. We sincerely thank our speakers, Dr. Komal sir, Chaitanya ma'am, Srimati Padma, Dr. Sundar sir, for shedding light on the profound verses. And a warm thank you to all our friends here for your participation and dedication to this journey of self-discovery. Let us meet again on Monday, the 1st of September 2025 at 6:45 p.m. for the next session in our Mananam series, where we continue with the Kathopanishad chapter 1, Valli 2 verses, guided by Dr. Hegde sir. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.